Over the past few years, I have fallen in love with US train travel. Every chance I get, I am actively researching how I can take a train through the mountains or even glide along the coast to get some gorgeous ocean views. But hands down, my favorite way to train travel is taking a long distance train ride, preferably overnight and preferably in one of the Amtrak roumettes. And as I am looking towards 2025 train adventures, but also reflecting on how far I've come over the past few years, I wanted to share 3 of my favorite and what I think are the best long distance train rides you can take if you want to take one in the US. Hello, for those who may be new here, my name is Sojourner, aka Sojournies, aka the train travel queen, and I am so excited to be sharing some of my favorite long distance train rides. However, in 2025, one of my goals is to get more people on the train, which is why I created a train travel survey to learn more about you and what you are looking for in a train experience that will maybe kind of help me plan and host group train trips next year. But before we get to that point, I want to learn more about you and your interests, whether you are a new train traveler who's a bit anxious or nervous or doesn't really know what to expect out of a train trip, or if you are a seasoned veteran train traveler. Please take the survey that is linked in the description box below to share your thoughts on your train travel experiences and help me get a better idea of who you are and what you're looking for in your future train rides. Okay, enough yapping. Let's talk about long distance train rides. So the first thing you should know if you are taking a long distance train ride is that the ones in the US are slow babes. Okay, this is not a 10-hour train ride. This is not even a 20-hour train ride of the 3 I'll be talking about in this video. These train rides are 1 or 2 nights sleeping on the train. So just know that this is slow travel, okay? We are focused on the journey just as much as the destination. So think of it as a traincation. For all 3 train rides I'll be mentioning in this video, know that I opted for the roomette, which can be pricey. I'm not gonna lie, they are definitely a more expensive experience. The least amount I paid was $400, and that was in a shared roomette with my sister, which I'll talk about later on in the video. And the most I paid was $900, and these are one-way prices. So again, not the cheapest experiences if you want the roomette. However, there is coach available, and booking the roomettes for me is really about ease. When I do that, I don't have to worry about packing a cooler with my meals or even eating in the cafe car. I get all of my meals in the dining car. I get a bed, I get some views, and I get access to the shower, which is really, really nice if you are in a sleeper car too. As far as booking, I generally book my rooms at least 3 months in advance on the train, though I have booked 5 to 6 months in advance if I know my schedule beforehand. In my experience, this has not really changed the price too much, though I do know there are people who have paid $1,000+ for the rooms that I have gotten. So I must be doing something right because I haven't paid that much yet. Also, you will note that all 3 trains I'm going to talk about are West Coast trains. I am so sorry to my East Coasters. I think the West Coast has the better trains just because they have the observation car, and going to the West Coast, especially me being based in Milwaukee in the Midwest, is just a bit better, a bit more scenic once we kind of get out of the Midwest, to be honest. But that is why I opt for the West Coast trains, though I do want to take more East Coast and Southern routes in the future. And speaking of routes, let's talk about the first one, which is the Amtrak Empire Builder. I took this in May 2023 during Memorial Day weekend, and I highly recommend it. It was 46 hours from Milwaukee to Portland, Oregon, but you can also start this train ride in Chicago. You do spend 2 nights on the train, and I did vlog this entire experience. If you want to go check out that vlog, I will also link it in the description box below. The highlight of the Empire Builder is going through Glacier National Park, and we almost missed it on our train ride. So trains are notoriously late and notoriously delayed, and we almost missed the views of Glacier National Park just by a little bit due to the cloudiness, and also because our train was a little bit delayed in the beginning, but thankfully it all worked out. If you are taking this route, note that it splits. So half of the train goes to Portland and then the other half goes to Seattle, and you don't have to get out of the train and move yourselves around, at least if you're in the room. I'm unsure of how it works in coach. However, when I was in the roomette, the train did split and I went to Portland. And when you go to Portland on the route that I did, or the day that I did it, we got the observation car, which means my last meal for breakfast was just a muffin or something from the cafe car. And if you're going to Seattle, that portion of the train splits and you all get the dining car. One of my favorite views on the last day of the train was seeing Mount Hood. Again, this area is a gem for nature and I enjoyed every single bit of it all the way until it was time to get off of the train. I personally appreciate the West Coast and even traveling through the Pacific Northwest because it is a beautiful sight to see. You have mountains, you have forests, and that's just not something we really have over here in the Midwest. As far as food, my favorite dish on this train was the blueberry white chocolate cheesecake. I am a dessert girly. I love sweets, especially like cheesecake, brownies, and baked goods. Those are my kryptonite. And I still think about this cheesecake a lot. It was delicious and the guy put whipped cream on it and I really enjoyed eating it in the dining car, and it was a great way to end the night. A common question I get is if I will take any of the routes I've already taken again. And for this one, the answer is maybe. I might want to take it to Seattle if I wanted to take the longer route instead of flying to Seattle from Milwaukee. However, there is a portion of this train from Seattle to Leavenworth. I think that's the name. I'm not from that part of the country, so if that's not the right name, my apologies. And that's where there's supposed to be a very scenic part if you go in the winter time. And I have never actually done a winter train ride, and I heard that segment is really beautiful. The second train ride I would recommend is the Amtrak Coast Starlight, and I took this from Los Angeles to Seattle, but you can also stop in Portland as well. It is 35 hours, so it's actually the shortest one on this list, and this is the only one I have taken with someone else. I went with my sister back in, I believe it was March or April of 2022, because I also have a YouTube vlog of us on this train ride, and we actually shared a roomette, which normally I am a solo train traveler, and her and I agreed that we should have got a bedroom. Okay, we like our space, and so while we had a really good time on the train, we wish we would have gotten a bigger room because it was just very small for the both of us and our snacks and our things. So that's something to keep in mind if you are considering traveling with someone. Pack a lot lighter than we did, or opt for a bedroom instead of the roomette. Also, another thing to note about the bed is that it is relatively small on the top bunk. The top bunk seemed a lot more narrow, and I'm already pretty petite. I'm 5'1", so if you're a taller person, I also wouldn't say that you should get on the top bunk. So my sister is taller than me and she took the bottom bunk, and I can sleep pretty much anywhere, so I didn't really lose any sleep, but I did feel a bit more cramped on the top bunk compared to when I normally sleep on the bottom bunk. Aside from that, the views were stunning. I was headed up the coast, which again, being from the Midwest, we don't have oceans. And so being able to sit in the observation car with my book and some music and just sit back, relax, and enjoy the views was a dream for me. And I felt so relaxed, especially on the first day, which I think is the most scenic part of the train trip. I did love the pasta I had on this train, but you can always go to Amtrak's website and check out the menus of the train before you get on it, so you can kind of be prepared to know what your options will be on the train. Again, the Coast Starlight is the shortest one out of all three of these. So if you only want to spend one night on the train, this is the train ride that I would recommend. And I think I would do this one again, but do it the opposite direction. I've heard that on the second day, I actually missed out on some views because of when the sun sets. So that's a big thing when you're planning these long distance train rides. If there isn't a lot of sun during the day, so if you go before we spring forward on our clocks, you may miss out on some of the sights of these trains. And I heard that there is a portion that I missed after we get past the Pacific Coast Highway. So I would go back and see what part of the route is the most scenic outside of the Pacific Coast Highway and probably go and do that one at some point. And if you know anything about US scenic train travel, you already know the last train on my list is the Amtrak California Zephyr. This is the most famous and most scenic train you can take in the country. It is 52 hours long. You spend 2 nights on the train, and I am very biased to this train because it was my first long distance train ride that I took in July 2021. Being based in the Midwest, I obviously started in Chicago and then went to Emeryville. The highlight is obviously going through the Rocky Mountains. Therefore, the most scenic part of this train does start in Denver. I will say the first day, it wasn't super scenic. I know people don't want to hear that from the Midwest, but babes, the West Coast has mountains, okay? We cannot compete with that. So I really enjoyed this ride. I mean, what else can you do? Like, it's going through the Rocky Mountains. And a lot of people often comment on my videos, whether on social media or here on YouTube, and say that, you know, you can just drive and get the same views, but you don't. Like, the thing about train travel in the US is that it goes through some parts that are not accessible by car. Also, I am a perpetual passenger princess, so I love having someone else drive me if I can. And so it's very different from driving, right? I don't have to worry about directions or where I'm going. I can sit back, relax in my room, have a glass of wine, maybe some food. I can have my word search, my coloring book, my junk journal, whatever I want to bring and relax with the views, like right there. So I definitely recommend this ride. If you don't take any other ride, I highly do recommend this one because it is the most scenic, it's the most popular, and it's the most iconic one in the country. As far as this one, I would take the Zephyr again. However, I would probably do the most scenic part and not do the full train ride across from Chicago to Emeryville. However, I would also again want to take this one in winter. The majority of my train rides I have taken in summer intentionally because the weather tends to be more milder in the United States, but this is again another one I would love to take in the winter. I've seen photos and it looks gorgeous just going through again the mountains with snow, or even in fall with all of the fall foliage changing different colors. I would love to do that too. And just like the other two, I did vlog this one as well, and I will link all of them in the description box below. And since we are looking towards the future of 2025 and beyond, I thought I'd also share some of the train rides I haven't taken that are long distance trains that are on my bucket list. So the first one is the City of New Orleans train, and I heard it's not super scenic once you take the other ones I've mentioned in this video, but I love New Orleans as a city. It's a place that I would road trip with my family from Milwaukee to New Orleans, which is like 20-ish hours in a car. I've also flown there. I have a whole vlog about a solo trip I did there in 2022. So I would love to take the train, just kind of round out all the different experiences. And New Orleans is one of my favorite cities, if not my favorite city in the US. So I'm always looking for an excuse to go back and eat and enjoy the music and all that the lively city has to offer. And the last kind of bucket of trains I want to take are just sleeper trains or overnight or long distance trains in other countries. I've done a lot of US train travel, so I'm looking at European countries as well as some Asian countries and just doing a whole European train trip. There's a train ride from Edinburgh to London called the Caledonian Sleeper that I think will be really cool. I would love to travel from the top of Vietnam to the south of Vietnam by train, because that is possible with a bunch of different train rides. So I'm really itching to see what the rest of the world has to offer. So if you are someone who also loves train travel and you have taken trains outside the US, drop your recommendations below, because I'm sure myself and other people who are interested in long distance train rides would also love to know. So that is all that I have for you today on my iPad. We have wrapped it all up nicely and neatly. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that all of your train travel dreams come true. Don't forget to fill out the train travel survey. Greatly appreciated as someone who loves train travel and is wondering how I can bring other people along with me so that I'm not always the solo train travel girl. Leave any questions or comments below, and as always, stay curious, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.